example, putting you down, those kind of
all
things.
those things that will eventually lead to something that is much more dangerous than what they're doing now.
Yes.
And so there's a pattern that starts at a very, very early period. Is that what we're saying, Reverend?
Yes.
Yeah. Go, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, I think it does, because I know in a lot of situations, and I can speak to my situation as well, that, it's what we see in the home a lot of times, that we do ourselves, and it seems like, in some situations, it seems like that's the natural normal thing. If I think a child that's growing up in a home where domestic violence is there, then it seems to be natural. I mean, because if this is what you're seeing and you're not seeing, all the healthy stuff, then you felt like what you're looking at and what you're experiencing, that's the norm, that's where it is. So you grow up and you feel like, you duplicate that thing. But I think the whole process with the domestic violence, and looking back, it was just a matter of wanting to control, to be in control, I run this, and you're going to do what I say, and it's going to be my way, and then, and what I've learned, I've learned over the years, man, Dr. Haney, I learned the art of crying. And that's what a lot of people need to be taught how to cry. A lot of boys need to be taught how to cry. A lot of men need to be taught how to cry. They'll stay out of jail if they just went, because what happens is we get our feelings hurt. And then we want to share that hurt and that pain. And the way we know how to share that hurt and that pain is physically. Because, we think that our manhood is all physical anyway, and more physical. So we want to share that hurt and that pain. So we strike out like that. But if you just go somewhere and use that God-given thing called crying, and just cry like you're supposed to. Get on out of the way, sit down somewhere, ball up in a little old ball, and just cry.
Just go on and have a good cry.
I understand. And you can get past that stuff, and you won't have to act out like that. And of course, like I say, you avoid going to jail as a result. But we just want to share that pain, and that's what happens. If you want to be in control, and if you hurt my feeling, you gonna feel what I'm feeling, instead of recognizing this is my pain, this is my feeling, this is my hurt, and I got to deal with my own hurt, and I got to deal with my own pain. And if crying is the mechanism that I need to use to deal with, then that's what I need to do. Because forget about the big boys don't cry stuff. Men that don't cry, something wrong.
Okay, Ms. Johnson, close us out over the last minute and a half that we have in terms of your perception in terms of these young children and domestic violence.
Well, again, it's an epidemic. We need to educate our children. We need to talk to them. We need to tell them the danger signs, what to look for. And through that education to look at it, it's not that they love you. They're just this person is just trying to be in control. It's my way or no way, or it's my way or the highway, that kind of thing.
And so in a real sense, domestic violence starts at an early age, and if we can sort of nip it in the bud, at least make young children much more sensitive and much more knowledgeable in terms of that there's a possibility that we might be able to stop it from occurring later on in life.
And also, Dr. Haney, to get them to show them what a healthy relationship really looks like. They don't know what that is. So we have an obligation to educate them in that area as well.
Yeah, I think that's what the pastor said, is that if you don't know that relationship, if you don't know what a healthy relationship is, you think that what you're doing and the noise that you make, the cursing that you do, the hurt that you inflict is something that is common, you see. And I think that when you live within an area, a community, then that's a part of that. And let me thank the two of you, because later on we're going to have two more individuals to talk about this. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Mr. Johnson, appreciate you. We appreciate you. Yeah, you're getting an excellent job.
You're doing great work.
You're doing great work, lady.
And see, back in last year, I was telling Pastor Walker, they had an ACEs summit. A lot of people don't even know about ACEs, but I can tell you about that later.
That sounds good. Brother Johnson, you want to sit here? Ms. Furr, Tracy Furr, okay. And we're still talking about domestic violence and adolescents, and so I think you when we start saying domestic violence and adolescents, and we're going to Tracy Furr,
Yes, sir.
you see, and then we want to start off at about the first 2 minutes of giving you your background, you know, who you are. You saw the way we did.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson, mic check, please.
And then after the, yeah.
Sir,
Say your name and count to 10 for mic check.
Robert R. Johnson, Jr., 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Just keep going. They got to turn you up.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
Okay. Ms. Furr?
Tracy Furr, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27.
That's good.
Okay, that last 27. That's
Okay, all right, yes.
Okay, so what we want to do, Brother Johnson, is to buy in to the conversation that we had with Ms. Johnson and Pastor Walker. You see, and this time what we'll do is to, so we've got 10 minutes for this segment. I'll take about a minute to introduce it, and then we want you to take about a minute or 2 minutes to talk about Robert Johnson, just about who you are. And then Ms. Furr, we want you to do the same thing.
Yes, sir.
About a couple of minutes. And
Okay.
then it'll come back to me. After that, then I will come back to you, and then we want you to, start talking, get into the conversation in terms
Right.
of what we're doing and whatever. And then we'll sort of trade it back, but we'll have 10 minutes. So 10 minutes is a long time.
It
Especially
is.
if I could go a long time. But when you have to talk, it sounds. Don't swing it. Keep your chair still. All right. Thank you and welcome. Okay. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We've been joined by Mr. Robert Johnson and Ms. Tracy Furr, who will also give us some information in reference to domestic violence and adolescents. But before we get into that, Mr. Johnson, let's see if we can have you to give us a couple of minutes of information about your background, your education, and some of your experiences. And Ms. Furr will do the same thing, and then we'll get into further aspects of domestic violence and adolescence.
Yes, sir, Dr. Haney. I grew up in Mobile, Alabama, graduated from Central High School there in 1964. At that time, I enlisted in the Army and served 2 years while doing 1 year in Vietnam. After my 2 years with the military, I went back to Mobile, spent a few months with my family, and then moved to Nashville, Tennessee. At that time, I went to the, at that time it was Nashville Business College. I spent about 18 months studying there, and after that time, just began to get various jobs in the community, better jobs because I had gone to school. And around 1988, well, in 1985, I met my wife, Joyce Johnson. I met her, and at the same time, I had been praying that that God would give me an opportunity to work with younger people. And so my wife was working at Cumberland Hall, which was, I changed that name to HAC later, but it was a psychiatric hospital for teens and adults. I applied over there. She was working part-time. I applied there for a job, and I couldn't believe that they gave me the opportunity to serve as a counselor for the next 10 years. During that 10-year period, after about 5 years of working there, the criteria started being higher. They wanted college degrees, at least a BS, to in a social field to work as counselors. And so it was a blessing for me because I had already spent more than 5 years of steady working on the job for 10 years. And that's exciting field working with kids. A lot of the kids that I worked with was sexually abused, physically abused, and sometimes all other types of abuses. And it's good to see those kids. You like to think that when they get grown, that you can see some gratification, but that's not a what you would call instant gratification job. You have to be patient. Sometimes it takes years to
see what you're looking for. Very good.
Yes,
okay, Ms. Furr, let's talk about your situation that brings you to us this morning.
Absolutely. Dr. Haney, my name is Tracy Furr. I was born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama. Graduated from Ramsey High School in 1988. After graduating from high school, I attended Jacksonville State University, majored in communications. I had my oldest daughter, who is now 25, and then got married and relocated here to Nashville, Tennessee, where I pursued my bachelor's degree, then changing my major to information technology. So I came into information technology because I could get a good job at that time in the early 90s, which was the wave of technology. Then I worked for Allstate Insurance Company for several years, and I was fortunate to participate in their tuition reimbursement program, at which time I pursued a degree in education. I graduated with my bachelor's in business education from Tennessee State University. The following August, which was 1998, then I went into education. And for that, from 1998 until 2014, I taught in metro schools for 14 years. In 2007, I earned my master's from Tennessee State, and now I'm working with Ms. Johnson as her administrator. So I'm also a licensed preacher. So part of what we're doing with YCC is really coming together to make sure that we're handling the business of YCC and also trying to effectively make change in our adolescents that are dealing with domestic violence.
Mr. Johnson, I would imagine that as a counselor, you probably had many opportunities to deal with this issue of domestic violence in adolescents. What are some of the things that you would tell our audience this morning about?
Well, back in during that time frame, we concentrated more on the anger management and the abuses, and we didn't have a lot at that particular time. Domestic violence wasn't looked at as that important.
As a problem, as a real problem.
Other than the family members being abusive themselves. But now, the way it's changed to me is that the domestic world now wants to look at the whole family because the whole family is involved. And one thing that I didn't say was that I just retired here a few years ago from the state of Tennessee, working as a correctional corporal. And I worked at DeBerry Special Needs, which is the mental health facility for the state of Tennessee. And so we you know, had a lot of counseling over there. The social workers did with the inmates.